Hi everyone, Angus Campbell here. It's the evening of Monday the 14th of October. So we're awaiting one or two bits and pieces to now arrive to finish off fitting the timing pinions on the crank, and those relate to left-hand thread, nuts and lock washers, tab washers. And they're currently on the way. But what we can focus on now to continue building up the bike is there's no reason why we can't insert the gearbox, which on A65s and A70s they're held together in one unit on this mounting plate, so it makes it very easy to install, and it's just held in by nuts on studs. So I've sorted the that's not part of it. Sorted the nuts. One stud came out with one of the nuts, but that's not a problem. They're plain nuts with spring washers, so we've got some new washers. So we can fit that. At a later stage, later this week, we'll fit the oil union. And on the mating surface of the oil union, there's not only a gasket, which we have, but there's also two small O-rings, and we've got new ones of those that have arrived today as well. But first off, for this clip for tonight, we'll put the gearbox in, and so I've moved the bike out so we can get to the other side. There we go. I'll need to remove this footrest, but that's easy. That's just one bolt. And we can just fit the gearbox in on this side, just to keep things moving along. Now, the only thing to be aware of is that with this gear cluster, things can fall off the shafts. So when you do store these, there's obviously this gear at this end, which is free, and also on the main shaft, that is, and on the lathe shaft, there's this thrust washer here, and that had fallen off in the box of parts, so we've retrieved that. So it's always good to refer to the parts book, just to make sure we've got all the parts in place and we're not missing something before we put anything in. And of course, the other thing to bear in mind as well is that before we put the gear cluster in, at the back of the gear cluster there's the cam location plunger that fits on the inside onto this, so we're just going to make sure we insert that into its housing first. But first off, we'll just get that footrest off, and then we'll take these parts over. Okay, all parts ready to go, finger out the way. Just need to get that 3/4 headed bolt undone for the footrest. The footrest is onto location prongs as well to stop it rotating, so it probably won't fall off. I would take that bolt out, and it promptly did. But anyway, we're okay. So that's done. So all we need to do is to fit the quadrant location plunger in that hole just down there, which you can just see. Sorry, it's a little bit dark. And then we'll just push the whole cluster in, and you can see main shaft at the top and lathe shaft blind-ended bearing at the other end. So it's just a simple slot in. So I'll just push this in and bring it back. Okay, there she is, all in. I need to torque up the 5 securing nuts on the gearbox back plate, but other than that is in. The one thing that I have noticed though, I did check out all of the gearbox gears to make sure there were none that were worn or had any chipped teeth, bearing in mind the history of this motor. But one thing that I have noticed putting this in, which I hadn't beforehand, is that the kickstart pinion teeth are quite worn. That might have to be replaced. Easy enough to do, but that certainly I think is the original and hasn't been disturbed, because the nut is in good order, and so is the tab washer. You can see that's very good. Never been off, I don't think, but that's not very clever at all. So we'll check the wear on the kickstart quadrant as well, and if that's bad we might have to replace this. What's probably happened is that the quadrant's been engaged while the engine's running, and that's usually a sign of maybe a poor return spring, something that's dragged the kickstart down while that's been running. It is in quite poor condition, so we'll have to have a think about that. But other than that, that's another step closer. So next we'll go on to the oil union, which fits down here. The bolt's in there at the moment. There's a couple of jobs I need to do first. One is to take the old oil lines off. I've got replacement new oil lines for it. But also, as I said, when we installed the bottom end of the motor here into the frame, we'll need to take off the front mount there and one of the back mounts, I think, just to lever the engine up slightly, so we've got a bit of room just to take that bolt out. It doesn't quite come out, and I should have installed that union before I put the engine into the frame, but it completely slipped my mind. So there we are for now. Right, bring you back in the next clip, which might be in a few days' time, and we'll take it from there. Hi everyone, Angus Campbell here. Saturday the 19th of October. It's been a few days since the last clip, but anyway, just a reminder that gearbox now in, and we'll continue with the work to put together the timing side here. We've been waiting for tab washers for the pinions, but they've now arrived. Also a replacement pinion nut for the cam pinion nut, that's arrived. We've the oil pump's not there yet, but we've got the oil pump to rebuild or check anyway. Oil pressure relief valve down here, which we'll just again strip as well and check. That's unique to the A70, and luckily it was with this motor. And also we need to begin prepping the inner timing cover as well. So lots of bits and pieces, jobs to carry on with. One thing that I've noticed, and I've obviously moaned about and complained about in the past, is again sometimes the quality of pattern parts, and I've come across this in the prep work today. So the first thing is that the tab washer tabs are too big, so we've just got to trim those a little. And also with respect to preparing other bits and pieces and cleaning things up as well, then the bench is looking a little bit of a mess, but that's simply because I'm sorting out parts as we go along. So to go back a step, there's the inner cover for the sprocket for the final drive sprocket. That's all painted up and polished. That's prepared. One of the other jobs that we've got for the timing side are the oil unions, so I've been cleaning those up, so that's fine. There's the inner timing cover, which I've just been cleaning up, and that's okay. But also I've been preparing new oil pipes as well, and I've had to order some 5/16 ID, but we can fit the rubber oil pipe afterwards. That's fine. But also, as I was doing cleaning up and sorting some bits and pieces out, just starting to think about the primary drive side as well, and cleaning up the gearbox cover from the primary drive side of it. We're going to replace the oil seal in that, and I've got two full oil seal kits for an A65, and going back to the pattern part issue, the oil seal appears to be right, but it's wrong. The outside diameter is correct, but the inside diameter is difficult to see on that shot, and on that one. The inside diameter anyway is too small with those kits, but luckily I've got another kit here which is one of the original Wassell kits, and Wassell have got a reasonable name actually. I don't know if they still manufacture pattern parts or not, but they certainly did in the 80s and 90s big time, and that's the oil seal we want there, and that's correct. So again, just be aware of pattern parts and just check before you fit, because they're always just annoyingly sometimes out. Over here, beginning to prep other things, so we've got the engine sump plate here and its filter. There's the new camshaft pinion nut. There's the oil pump, we'll check that out. And here's the oil pressure relief valve. And then the final thing that I've been messing about with as well is the plate and the filter for the bottom of the oil bearing tube on the frame. And again, another moan. I've got a complete gasket set that's arrived and that I'm using, but it doesn't have the gasket for that, so I've had to order that separately as well. So anyway, getting there in fits and starts, but we'll crack on with a few jobs today. And I think the first thing we'll do is we'll go back to the bike and we'll just dress the tab washers, and we'll fit both the camshaft pinion lock nut and also the lock nut on the end of the crankshaft that locks in the oil pump worm drive. So we'll focus on that first. Okay, so what we're going to do first, as I say, is we'll dress that tab washer there, and then we'll fit that tab washer and the new nut. And then on the end of the crank here, we've got the all-in-one nut and worm drive already on that secures the main crankshaft pinion, and then there's a tab washer and lock nut on the outside of that. This is left-hand thread and this is right-hand thread. I'll just check that, but I'm sure that's the case. So we'll get the tab washers prepared first, and then we'll get these tightened up. Okay, that's the pinion nuts with the washer on, and can't see it too well, but on the top side here we've flattened that washer onto the nut, and similarly down here on this side we've got a flat there against the nut, which you can just about see. But that should do the trick, and that's that job done. So next we're going to move on to the, sorry, let me just go back down here. Next we're going to get on to the oil pressure relief valve and the oil oil pipe unions which go on here, and we'll need to lever the engine up a little bit because I should have fitted the oil unions before I put the unit in, but I didn't. But it's not too difficult to get at. We're only loosely in at the moment, and we'll just take the front bolt out here, and we'll be able to just lever it up with a jack underneath it. Just pivot it on the back top bolt here. We'll need to take that one out there too, but that's easy enough. So at the moment I'm just waiting for the ultrasonic cleaner to warm up. That's on at the moment because I just want to get the oil unions well cleaned out. I've already given them a good dose and a scrub with degreaser, as you can see. And but firstly we'll give that a bit of an ultrasonic clean first. And while we're waiting for the cleaner to heat up, we'll now go ahead and just dismantle the oil pressure relief valve. One other thing that I haven't mentioned that you may have seen lying on the bench here is the final drive sprocket. And I don't know if you can see that, but I've just cleaned that up recently, and that's worn. You can see the teeth on there are slowly beginning to hook. It's quite pronounced. It's worn, very worn on the drive side on each of those teeth. So we'll see if we can get a sprocket ordered up. These are 21 tooth sprockets, so again they're unique to the A70, as I believe the A65 is a 20 tooth, but we'll go online and see if we can get a 21 tooth sprocket. We could get away with that, but it is beginning to wear, as you can see. Not drastic yet. We also know, if you recollect, that when we were building up the rolling chassis, the rear sprocket actually is in very, very good condition and has survived well. No obvious hooking on those teeth at all, so that's good. So we can get away with that engine sprocket, but we'll see if we can get a new one. Right, we'll just wait for the ultrasonic clean to warm up, but in the meantime let me just get the oil pressure relief valve in the vise, and we'll just take that apart and see what that's like inside, because that can go in the cleaner too. Okay, good news. The plunger and the spring are inside, which is what we wanted, and there was oil in there, so that's good. I don't have the specifications for that spring, which obviously is the all important part to regulate the oil pressure. So at the moment we'll need to run as is, and I'll see if I need to find out some information. But anyway, we'll get these parts cleaned up. We'll make sure that gauze there is nice and clean. But anyway, it seems to have survived without too much gunge inside, and we'll just need a new fibre washer. But we'll get that cleaned up, and that'll be the next job. Okay, and here's the oil pump, which is the later cast iron oil pump, which is less liable to distortion. The earlier ones were alley, I believe. And all we need to do to disassemble this and to clean this out and make sure the gears are okay is to undo these 4 bolts here. So I'll do that now, and we'll take this apart. The oil pump came apart well, no difficulties at all. So we've got the end cap, we've got the 2, I presume, as they're higher capacity, there'll be the return gears. We've got the main body. On the other side we've got the pump gears, and then we've got the end casting that contains the worm drive that's driven off the crank. I could take a circlip out the end of that and remove that, but it looks in in good condition, not doesn't look worn. So we'll just wash that as is and oil it up well, and we'll just rinse all these parts down now, oil up, and put the pump back together. Hence the gunk to the right. They're going to get a bath in that. Okay, into the bath goes the oil pipe union and also the inner timing cover. It's already had one bath that a while ago. It's had another degrease and another bath because we need to think about cleaning that up. So it's not quite up to temperature yet, but we'll put it in there to work, and we'll give that 15 minutes or so. Once it gets up to a bit higher temperature, as you can see, it's well down yet. It's only at 20, 28 or so. But the thing about this bath is that, and I might do a feature on it at some point, is I'm pleased with it, but it does take a little while to warm up. So once it is warmed up and at operating temperature, then it's best to get quite a few jobs done at once. It seems to sort of warm up exponentially, in that as it gets warmer, it takes a shorter period of time to increase the temperature up to operating temperatures. So we're well on the way now, so we're not far off. And I'll get on now with putting the pump back together. I'll see if I can set you up on the stand to do this, and at the same time we've got the oil pressure relief valve having a soak in degrease, so that should be good enough for that. Let's see if I can get you on a stand so we can build this up. It's pretty straightforward. Right, let's see how you get on from there. So these parts have been washed in degreaser and dried down, and also what I've done is, with respect to the mating face onto the crankcase, the right hand crankcase side, I've just made sure those are exceptionally clean, so we get a good flat, nice flat face onto a new gasket, and there's no residual gasket there. So all we need to do is basically work backwards from here to reassemble, and that should be that way around. So we'll just need some oil. So firstly, from the back, we'll oil up the worm drive. Lovely and smooth, no bits in it. And then from its other side, then we insert the first gear. So this is the driver gear. And it's got to that's it. Make sure you seat it into the slot so it's absolutely flush. Oil. Now the main body slots on like so, but we need to make sure that this gear is in the other side. So let's just give this a good wash and coating in oil. driven gear in that side, and then we can slot these two together. Now I'm just checking I've got this the right way around. Actually, no, I haven't. And the reason I know I haven't got this the right way around is because the two surfaces that should mate together between the body and the worm drive are pinned. So let's get this the right way around. Slot the driven gear now in the correct side, and then we can put the two halves together and then make sure that the pins locate, the two locating pins. There we go. Push those together. And there you can see the two halves are together, but you've got the mounting mating surface to the crankcase on this side, and it's flush. So now all we need to do is to replace the final two gears and a spindle. The gears you can't get the wrong way round because the driven shaft poking through here has a flat on it. So one of the gears, the correct gear, has a flat, and there it is. So that won't turn on its own. That's the driver gear, the driven gear, and its spindle go on the other side. Like so. Ton more oil. And then just to check that everything turns as it does when I turn the worm drive by using the split shaft that comes out of the other side, which actually runs then the tacho. Okay, that's all good. So all I've got to do now is replace the cap. And then just locate the 4 bolts, fixing bolts, they're all the same. And then we'll just tighten down. And once these are hand tight, I'll check the manual then to see if there's a torque setting. Bit stiff, some of them, but 2 of them, but that's, I'd rather have them stiff than not. Here we go. The pump's still spinning nice and freely as I'm doing these up. Sometimes there's a little bit of pressure building up as it's trying to force out the excess oil that's in there. That'll spread around, which is good actually. It means the gears are in good condition, which they are. Okay, so they're nice and tight by hand, and the pump's spinning nice and freely. Beautiful. So now we can just wipe the excess off with a nice clean rag. And I'll check the torque settings now, but there we are, one cleaned out, not rebuilt, but just serviced, cleaned out pump, just to make sure after the say disasters of this engine, it's just to make sure that nothing's got in there and damaged the gears, but that's in good condition. Okay, right, just grab a cup of tea and think about what we do next. But I think what I'll do is I'll grab a cuppa and I'll put the ultrasonic cleaner on now for 15 minutes or so, and we'll leave that to cook, and in the meantime we'll also see if we can source another 21 tooth sprocket. So back soon. Okay, a gaggle of jobs done then. So firstly, 21 tooth sprockets are available under the original part number, so I've ordered one of those up. Oil pressure relief valve components have been all nicely cleaned up, and if you look now at that gauze, that's much better. Nice and clean, so we'll put that together. There is no free measurement for that spring because according to the workshop manual, this part is like what they call a captive part, I think. In other words, it's not serviceable, and it says that it can't be dismantled, but obviously it can. So we'll put that back together as is. The pump, as you've seen, has already been done. The oil unions have all now been ultrasonically cleaned, dried off, and then flushed out with fresh oil. And finally, this is the other side of the primary drive, but just while I was at it, we mentioned the fact that we only had one of the correct seals, two of the others were incorrect. So anyway, I've just taken the old one out, pressed that in and cleaned that cover up so that can go to one side, ready for when we attack the primary drive. So now we'll put the oil pressure relief valve back together with plenty of oil, and then we'll get ready to fit. I'll take that out of the way, fit those three components and finish off the timing side. So I'll probably leave that now until the next video, as this one's been going long enough. So bits and pieces jobs, small jobs, but nevertheless very important jobs, and again continuing to make some progress, and we'll soon have the be in the position to get the inner timing cover installed once these are in, and that's still having a bath in the cleaner, and it's going to get another ultrasonic session shortly to make sure that's nice and clean. So that's it for now. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. Again, your interest and comments, etc., appreciated, and any subscriptions. Thanks again, and see you again soon. Cheers, bye-bye.